In the studios of WNTI with me this morning on Contours, I have returning guest and all-around great guy, John Hampilos. He is from Little Brook Nursing and Convalescent Home and periodically comes on Contours to talk about things that you should know when it comes to your aging relatives, friends, and, maybe even starting to think about for yourself at some point. So first, we're going to talk about planning with your aging parents. And things you should look for, things to do, maybe some things you shouldn't do. John, welcome back to WNTI.
Thank you, Mel, and you're too kind. And
you're a lot of fun. I love when you come to the station.
I'm glad to be back. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So what is it we need to talk about today as far as planning with your aging parents is concerned?
Well, Mel, it's never too early for us to sit down with our parents and discuss their future needs. We discuss automobile insurance and home insurance and other types of insurances among ourselves. But, as we age, we need to be considering other types of plans. And specifically, what I'd like to talk to you about today is the Advanced Healthcare Directive and Living Will that we all should have in place in advance of the time of need.
And anyone out there that's gone to have any type of surgical procedure lately, they ask you about this, and it doesn't matter how old you are.
Right, exactly. These are two legal documents that essentially set forth your instructions on what health care you do and do not want if you become critically ill or unable to make or express your decisions. And as you know, if we become incapacitated either through a car accident or through perhaps early onset dementia, we do want to have our wishes expressed explicitly so that whoever is responsible for our health care, a healthcare proxy, which I'll speak about in a moment, can make those decisions for us if and when needed. The healthcare proxy is a person that one names who will make and carry out medical decisions on your behalf.
So is it on the lines of a power of attorney?
Yes, exactly. There are two types of power of attorney. One power of attorney is for financial decisions, and the other one is for medical decisions.
Gotcha.
And so to the extent that you can identify such a person and express your wishes to that person, it'll go a long way in making your health care better in the hospital or in a nursing home, or in any type of environment for that matter. Guardianship is an important element as we grow older. The worst thing that can happen is if no one is assigned to oversee your medical decisions, and then it's left up to the courts to decide who will make that decision for you, or your family will have to go to court and argue for legal guardianship, and that process could be very lengthy and very costly. In the meantime, one could be in the hospital waiting for decisions to be made.
And that's not good. It's stressful enough on the family when there's a medical situation with someone you love. But when the proper paperwork isn't in place and you have to try to fight through the court system, it's just unthinkable, the emotions that you go through. And there's fighting amongst the family and no, they wanted this. Yes, they did. And it's just a mess.
It is. And even when those are in place, there's still some arguments and fighting. When our residents come into Little Brook Nursing Home, for example, we encourage families to have all their paperwork in order. And especially these two legal documents. Again, it's the living will, and the other document is the Advanced Healthcare Directive. Now, when I say living will, that document only states your desires regarding life-sustaining treatment if you are terminally ill or permanently unconscious. It does not explicitly state your other healthcare wishes or directives, and that's why the second document, the Advanced Healthcare Directive, is important. It's a broader scope of directions to your healthcare providers, to the hospital, to its staff, that will ensure that you get the kind of care that you want or don't want for that matter. And the only way to ensure your wishes in terms of healthcare is to follow up and have this Advanced Healthcare Directives document signed, completed and signed. And we encourage you to visit your attorney and discuss these two very important documents.
Especially if you get to the point where, you may have dementia or you may have Alzheimer and you're not thinking clearly and you can't make these decisions or sign these documents. It's kind of too late then. It's never too early to start planning and thinking about all this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Children in their 30s and 40s, 50s and 60s should be discussing this with their parents. At the minimum, just to have these documents in place. And if necessary, over time, that healthcare proxy or power of attorney can be changed if one desires. But the worst thing that could happen is that if we enter into a state, either by accident or by, through the aging process, where we as residents, patients in a hospital or a nursing home can't make those kind of decisions. Clearly, logically cannot make those kind of decisions. And so it's extremely important that people identify someone, either a relative or a very close friend or confidant or an attorney or some other person in the community that can become their healthcare proxy. I think the worst thing that can happen, and it's not too bad, a situation, is where the state becomes involved with your health care and the state makes decisions on what's good or not good for you, which may be incompatible with your beliefs, your principles, and your wishes. And so it's important that you state this very clearly, up front.
We're speaking today to John Hampilos. He's from Little Brook Nursing and Convalescent Center, and periodically John comes to the station to give us some good tips and reminders about elder care and how to plan with your aging parents and, how to even plan for yourself. John, these forms that you're talking about, the advanced directives and the living wills, are they available? Are generic versions of them available online, or do you need to go to an attorney to just get the forms?
I think they're available through both avenues. I have not seen a standard form come across our desk at Little Brook. All of them are tailored to everybody's different needs. They're structured differently. There's contingencies. There's contact people. Persons that need to be involved if a situation were to arrive either by accident or through the aging process. And so, all these documents are different and they're unique to each and every resident that we see. And so I'm sure they're available online or through, a software provider, or, through your attorneys. But, what's most important is that your wishes be expressed. Do you want to be on life-sustaining, equipment? Do you want to be tube-fed? Do you want, oxygen? Do you want, all measures taken to sustain your life, or don't you? And express in writing and to the person who will become your healthcare proxy exactly what your desires are, what your wishes are. We don't know what, the future holds for us. And so to the extent that you can plan with the living will and with the advanced healthcare directive will go a long way in easing your family's and friends' concerns and wishes and desires for you, assuring that you have the proper care and the appropriate care and the care that you wish to receive. And also, hospitals and institutions like Little Brook Nursing Home also appreciate these documents in place in advance of situations, or entry into a facility like ours. So it's important for everyone, your loved ones, your friends, the facilities that will be treating you and helping you, and even for yourself, that you have peace of mind, because you may be in a situation where you may be conscious, but unable to communicate. Mm-hmm. And, that's a situation where you definitely want to have something in writing and someone in charge of your health care, and not be, in a situation where you're unable to express yourself verbally, orally or in writing, your desires for your health care.
John, once again, lots of good information on elder care. And again, John Hampilos is from Little Brook Nursing and Convalescent Home. and they are in Califon, New Jersey. John, if someone would like a little more detailed information about Little Brook, how can they get in touch with you?
You can contact our administrator, Mr. John Casarda. John Casarda is available at 908-832-2220. Again, that number is 908-832-2220. If he's unable to answer questions, he's quite knowledgeable. He's been in with Little Brook for 20 years now and has vast experience and exposures to many, many different types of situations. But if he's unable to answer your questions or they're above and beyond what we, can provide, he can refer you to someone knowledgeable in the field, either a physician or a financial advisor or even an attorney. Additionally, I think it's important, as part of the planning process, that people consider their options as far as financing their type of care. And if I can just digress a little bit and then come back to
No, go right ahead, John.
Our planning process here. There are many, many times where sometimes the state, either through Medicare, that is the federal government who provides health care insurance to seniors, or the state through its Medicaid programs for the indigent, are unable to provide the kind of resources that one may require. And in that case, it's never too early to start thinking about long-term care insurance.
Yes.
I can't tell you, Mel, how many people come into our facility at Little Brook and have no long-term care health insurance. And while we're young, that is in our 50s and 60s, it's a lot less expensive than it is when we get into our 70s and 80s. And the type of coverage these insurance plans provide, these premiums provide, may not cover the entire stay of someone's recuperation or convalescence in a nursing home, but at least will help defray some of the expenses. In the United States, the typical nursing home bed costs between $200 and $350 per day. And the insurance premiums that we pay for long-term care can cover a good portion of that, 50% or sometimes even more. And that's enormous when you consider that a stay in a nursing home could range between 10 days and 100 days of therapy and convalescing. And so we encourage people also, as part of this planning process, sit down and discuss what your financial situation is. Because sometimes the assets that we have, whether money, stocks or bonds, personal items like automobiles, jewelry, etc., or even our homes, may not be available or may not be liquid to cover these expenses. And the last thing we want to see is families having to deal with the sale of a home in order to cover someone's stay in a nursing home. And so we encourage people to meet with their financial advisors and discuss, and the insurers for that matter, and discuss what options they have as far as coverage is concerned to care for them in the event that they need a nursing home stay, either short-term or long-term care as well.
Yeah, when you're young and healthy, it's kind of hard to think about things like this, but it can come on very quickly. And you don't have to be old to need a stay in a rehabilitation center or a nursing home or something like that. It could happen because of an injury.
Absolutely, an injury or a genetic disease. We have a very close friend of the family who, at age 45, plus or minus, has been diagnosed with MS. Now, who could predict what the future holds for us? But in his situation, he has, a ways to go before, full-blown onset of the disease. But nevertheless, something can strike us down. Even dementia, early onset dementia, is being identified more and more. In the United States, there are approximately 5 million people with some form of dementia or Alzheimer's.
Really?
Yes. And it's expected to triple over the next 20 to 30 years. That's a huge influx of people. And it's not because we're getting better at diagnosis, which we are, by the way, but it's because the population is aging. We're all aging. And as a result, because of better diagnostic techniques and because of the aging process and because of our abilities to live longer lives, back in the early 1900s, people rarely lived beyond 55, 65 years of age. Now it's not uncommon for us to live to 70, 80, 90 years old, especially women.
We're strong.
You're strong, right? Yeah. The men, clearly don't live as long as women, but nonetheless, we all, as a group, as a population in the U.S., are living longer lives. As a result, we're succumbing to diseases that were sort of uncommon. They existed back in the 1800s, 1700s, 1900s, but people really never experienced Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's disease or cancer. With the advent of cardiovascular drugs and pulmonary drugs and antibiotics and antivirals, people are living longer, healthier lives. But with longer, healthier lives come central nervous system diseases like Alzheimer's. And so what we're seeing now is an influx of dementia and Alzheimer's in the aging population, that is people in their 70s and 80s, but also because of the great diagnostic techniques that have been developed, we're seeing early onset dementia, people in their 40s and 50s who, it's one thing to forget about where you placed your keys or if you turned the burner off in the stove, but it's another when you lose your memory. And I'm not talking about short-term, I'm talking about long-term memories, memories erased, not recognizing people, names, faces, etc. And so it's important that we have an understanding of these kind of conditions and diseases that we're going to approach in our aging years, and to prepare financially and medically through insurance programs, through evaluation of our assets with our financial advisors, and through speaking with our physicians and and lawyers to determine what's a course of action. What plans can we lay down? We may never even have to use insurance. We may never succumb to these kind of diseases or conditions, but it's always a good idea to have that plan in place, especially for the younger people in their 40s and 50s and 60s who do have children they're still supporting, who do have grandchildren. It's not a bad idea to sit down and plan things out. And heaven help us, we never have to use these, but at least they're in place. And the people who will be responsible for us, either legally or financially or medically, have been identified in advance. So if you have an attorney, discuss this with him or her. If they are not familiar with senior care, geriatric care, long-term care issues and planning processes, ask him who in their practice is. Same thing with your financial advisor. If you don't have one, seek one out, especially one who focuses in on the long-term care needs and the older populations. Same thing with physicians. See your physician, talk to them about the aging process, discuss diagnostics, things that you sense are coming on as you begin to age. It may be something more serious, most likely it isn't. Discuss with your insurance agencies, what kind of coverages you have as far as long-term care insurance is concerned, as far as health care insurance is up until you do receive Medicare, which is our insurance program for senior citizens, and you've become eligible for it. But up until that point, make sure that you have enough coverage to cover you for incidences, situations like this. So we encourage people to, again, identify your healthcare proxy, your power of attorney for medical needs, and identify your power of attorney for your financial needs as well, so that you're covered on those two ends. And again, those two legal documents, Mel, are advanced healthcare directives, which are more detailed and explicit about your wishes and desires as far as your healthcare is concerned in the event that you become incapacitated or unable to communicate. And the other is the living will, which states your desire for, again, regarding life-sustaining treatment if you're terminally ill or become unconscious. So please reach out to your professionals and to your friends and families and identify those who will oversee your health going forward.
John Hampilos from Little Brook Nursing and Convalescent Home has been our guest this morning on Contours, and always comes with lots of great information for the listeners to think about. So thank you once again, John.
And thank you, Mel, and WNTI.